We're good to go. Hey guys, we're back. It's Victoria Torkster on Need to Know, live on Stimulus. So thank you to anyone who kind of tuned in yesterday to be watching our live demo of the science behind pancakes. Today I kind of raided my kitchen cabinets to see what miscellaneous things I could be baking up for you today, and I came up with a couple different treats. So we are going to be making both some caramel corn and some kind of elevated cereal treats, if you will. We're taking Rice Krispies, we're making them a little bit more tuned up, because why not? So I'm starting off, I already have my oven that is preheating at 225 degrees. So the caramel corn kind of goes in a couple different stages. So first off, we're going to obviously pop the popcorn. So I'm gonna bring my camera is going to be moving up and down. I am following along in the chat, so if you guys have any questions, by all means, pop in, ask away, and I will try to address them to the best of my abilities. But by all means, ask away. Shut my window. There's a lot of outside noise happening. So I have my heat. I have my pan here, and I'm going to be popping up some high heat. And to pop the popcorn, I use a bunch of different oils for this. Today I'm going to be using coconut oil just because I have a copious amount of it, but I've used olive oil, butter, vegetable oil. I also really like, when I'm making a very seasoned savory popcorn, I do like to use sesame oil. I think that's super delicious, but I like to go personally a little bit heavy when it comes to popping popcorn. I hope that you guys are a little bit ambitious when it comes to popping popcorn at home, not just using like the bag stuff. It's so easy to pop it at home. You just need a little bit of patience, as I keep saying. Just anything good takes a little bit of patience. So I got my coconut oil in here. It's melting down. And for this recipe, I am going to be popping a yield of 2 quarts. So I got my kernels here. For every 1 tablespoon of popcorn kernels, it's going to yield you roughly 1 quart of popped popcorn later. So with that being said, I have my heat at like a medium to medium high, just to initially melt down my butter. And as things start to pop, I will turn the heat a little bit lower. That is one, to prevent my popcorn that's anything popped at the bottom from scorching. I think we've all been there in that regard, where we got some overly cooked kernels, and that makes for sad popcorn. So I'm going to be popping my 2 tablespoons in. I'm going to add a little bit more just so I have for a snack later, because why not? I'm going through the trouble. But, whenever you're popping at home, you never want to put any more than 1 single layer of kernels at the bottom of your pot. That just kind of ensures you have enough surface area for your popcorn to pop later. But just give it room to breathe, essentially, is what I'm saying. And with any good cooking, I like to season as I go. So I'm going to go ahead, add a pretty hefty amount of salt to my kernels now. That way, as they're popping with the oil, that kind of salty oil will start absorbing into the kernels. As we know, popcorn is, pretty porous at this point. So I'm going to just allow that to start sitting with a cover on top of it, one, to kind of prevent myself from getting a face full of popcorn and scorching oil. But the steam inside of the pot now is going to help promote all of the kernels popping pretty uniformly. So I don't just leave it, I babysit a little bit. We already got some action going on in here, but as it's popping, I am going to be kind of taking this guy off the heat, shaking it around. That's going to be redistributing the heat quite a bit inside, and making sure that nothing is scorching at the bottom. And now we wait. So exciting. Yeah, so these pots I absolutely love. They're actually my roommates, and they're pretty vintage. They were her grandmother's, and they're really cute. I mean, they're just like this dope magenta color. Definitely worn a little bit, but that just adds to the character. They do a good job. So moving my stuff around. Okay, so for the rest of the caramel corn, not a lot of ingredients going into here. Some stuff that you probably have at home. But for this, we're going to be rocking brown sugar, corn syrup, butter, salt, and more baking soda. I'm going to go into, I know I had like a very hefty rant about baking soda yesterday, but I'm going to go into the importance of it again today. It does do significant work in candy making with sugars and everything. So when we hit that, we'll kind of discuss that later. So my popcorn is looking tight. Again, I like to open it up, let a little steam let out, move it around. I can already hear that it's kind of dwindling down, so that's probably nearing to its doneness. Oops. All right, I'd say this guy is good. I don't really hear kernels popping anymore. I'm gonna pop this off. Just kidding. Got some guys that ran astray. So I'm gonna keep the lid on, so if any kernels do pop, I don't have them kind of exploding out at me. But the heat is off. I have the lid kind of allowing any remnant steam to escape so that none of the excess moisture is absorbing into that popcorn. And I'm going to kind of go into my next step, which is going to be measing out for the caramel corn. So the term mise, maybe you home cooks don't necessarily know about it. Mise en place means everything in place. That is like the standard key for anyone that works in a kitchen. If your mise en place is not together, your day is just completely going to run astray. So with that being said, before starting this segment, I have all of my ingredients out here. One, so that I'm kind of just not rummaging through the cabinets, but seeing all the ingredients that I need, which I will just put. So I got my baking soda, my butter already measured out. So this is 4 tablespoons worth of butter. Got my corn syrup and my brown sugar. So I just have all my ingredients out. It just makes for, you know, your project. You can see it truly from start to finish. So let's see, got a question. What's my favorite topping to put on popcorn? Man, all right, so I'm gonna pause this really quick and answer that question. So I'm not gonna lie, I love, maybe this is a total cheat, but I totally buy like these packets of green onion mix or like even just like ranch powder. That just takes your popcorn to like, I cannot get enough of it. So what I do when I'm popping my popcorn is I'll use whatever oil that I like. I'll season it with my salt. And then as it's still on the heat, I'll start throwing in a little bit of that seasoning and kind of mix it up around inside of the pot with everything. And that allows the seasonings to stick. And I don't know, I love it. It's totally trashy, but I love it. Other things I like, nutritional yeast is really good. A little bit of liquid amino acids, really good. Or just, you know, some really good kosher sea salt and delicious butter. So why not? Okay, so I have my pot here. I'm going to start measuring out the rest of my ingredients. So I am going to start out with half a cup of a packed half cup of brown sugar. Boom. Got my 4 tablespoons of butter. We have our corn syrup. So we're going to do a 1/4 cup of corn syrup. This corn syrup is a really good cheat when it kind of comes to cooking with sugars. You know, I said this yesterday, but there's not a lot of really other good terminologies. It's a really good lubricant when you're cooking sugar. It prevents sugars from burning. It can also allow sugars to go up to really high heat without burning again. So it definitely, a little bit goes a really long way. So I got a 1/4 cup in there. And that's, you know, these 3 ingredients, I'm going to start off on high heat. I'm going to come back to here. Yeah, we can see that good enough. So I'm going to pop that on. Actually, I'm going to start on low heat until my butter starts to melt down. And then I'm going to pop it up and introduce it to some medium heat so that the sugars can start melting in with the butter. So I did say that we have 2 other ingredients going in. We have salt and we have baking soda. A little bit of this is going to go a really long way. So baking soda, as I kind of said yesterday, and I will kind of not go into the elongated descriptor of it, but baking soda is a bisodium carbonate. It's essentially whatever you're adding it to, it's going to help introduce the reaction that makes CO2. And that is going to help with this because It's going to take the sugar. The acidity from the brown sugar is going to be what help activates the the baking soda. And when I add it to this, you'll see it's, I mean, I really love it. It's really fun. It will kind of bubble up a lot and become this like really beautiful color. And what that is doing is just creating all these little pockets of CO2 inside of the sugar so that when I pour it over the popcorn, that aeration is going to help coat my popcorn a lot more evenly. So we'll kind of see that work in a little bit. Anywho, I got this guy over here starting to come up. So this is going to happen pretty quick. Like I said, I have my oven already set at 225. I have a half sheet tray behind me that is lined with, you can line it with parchment paper. I have a sill pad, which is this like, I love these things. They're a little expensive, but they're really worth it. These guys here, they're like, 18 to 20 bucks. But with that being said, it's like you have one and you're set for life if you take care of them, because they are just indestructible and will, you don't have to buy parchment paper anymore. So one less thing to purchase later. Parchment paper is also quite expensive. So yeah. So this is all coming together. So this here is going to come up to a boil and boil for about 5 minutes. I'll kind of keep watching and I'll show you what to look out for. But like I said, it's all going to work pretty quickly. I already have my baking soda kind of ready to go. We're going to be using a 1/4 teaspoon of that. And, upon me popping this into the caramel, it's going to be a quick turnover from me mixing in the baking soda to pouring it over the popcorn. Because as I said, when all the CO2 bubbles kind of erupt inside of this caramel, it's going to grow quite a bit. And I just kind of want to mix everything together as soon as possible. So this guy's starting to come up to a boil. It's exactly what I'm looking for. So what I really love about caramel corn, one, it seems like it's kind of, hard thing to make. It's definitely not at home. It just takes a little bit of time because, you have to make the caramel and then you have to pop it in the oven and cook it at a very low temperature. And what that is going to be doing, it's going to allow all of the residual liquid that is in the caramel to evaporate out. All of that caramel is going to adhere to the popcorn, and that's what's going to give it that really crunchy texture that everybody loves with the popcorn. And there is kind of a ridiculous amount of butter in here, which I love because as you're eating this, it totally melts in your mouth and is fantastic. So, this recipe is only going to be yielding me 2 quarts. Easily adaptable to make really big batches. Back at work, I've made almost 80 quart size batches with really big bus tubs and huge pots and pans, with everyone helping me stir everything together. But, you can do gigantic batches of this with no problem. So it's a really good and easy gift to give during the holidays or what have you, or, if you're just gluttonous, you can just make a big old batch for yourself. So I'm actually going to, as I did yesterday, if you guys were tuning in, I made a little bit of a boozy version of my caramelized bananas for my pancakes, and I'm going to do the same thing today because why not? So this recipe you can take after the caramel comes off the heat. I'm going to introduce some raw liquor to it into the caramel. And what that is going to do is just give it like this really beautiful, fantastic, robust flavor. I guess I can pop back up so you can see me talk. I'm going to use Averna again, just because that's one of my favorite liquors. It's just like super, super delicious and I love it. So I'm going to add the Averna to this as well. I'm going to add about 1/3 of a cup. You can easily use a dark rum. You can use any Amaro. You can use Amaretto. Amaretto would be super delicious. Or you can just leave it plain and not put any booze in it. But, these are desperate times, people. We can put some booze in it. So I have a bowl here. Also, one of the reasons why I decided to leave, I guess I'll pop back down again. Why I decided to leave my popcorn on the heat is because I want this popcorn to be at like slightly warm. If you had pre-popped popcorn, I just want to show you because I'm proud of my method for making popcorn because I got just two little kernels. You can't even see them, but 2 kernels were the only 2 that didn't pop. Hell freaking yeah. Anyway, so I have my popcorn in here. I kept my popcorn over the heat because I want the popcorn to be relatively warm. That's just going to make mixing this a lot easier. If I had this pre-popped, I would put it in the oven for like 2 minutes just to bring it to be a little bit warm as well. And then I would be adding the caramel to it. It's just going to make everything kind of run a lot smoother. So, a little bit of space. So my caramel is pretty much ready. The bubbles are relatively small inside of the caramel itself. It kind of came up to a bit of a more of a bubbling boil and then slowed down a bit. That makes me see that a lot of my remnant liquid has evaporated out of the caramel, which is what I'm looking for. The less liquid that is in here, the faster it's going to be cooking essentially. So, I mean, the irony of me adding a decent amount more liquid into it is whatever. Essentially, it's just going to take a little bit longer to cook. But with that being said, if I reduce this down a little bit more, it will kind of counteract how much more liquid I am going to be adding to this. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. I'm going to add my booze to it, my Amaro. So I have 1/3 of a cup that I'm going to be adding. A little hefty. Yes. Oh my God, that smells so good. Okay. So I got that added. I'm going to turn my heat up a little bit higher again. I'm going to season it with a little bit of salt. I got like 1/4 teaspoon of salt that I'm adding. Mix that up. And then for the fun part, I'm going to switch to a whisk attachment for this guy. So I love this whisk. I don't know if any of you guys have seen this, but it's awesome. It's called a ball whisk. It's mostly for hand whisking meringues, but it's my kind of just go-to utility whisk. So I got 1/4 teaspoon of baking soda that I'm going to be adding into this. Immediately upon adding it, I'm going to be stirring as well. I'm going to pop this off the heat, add my baking soda, and this guy just bubbles up quite a bit, and it's lovely. So that's Gucci. And we're ready for the next step, which is adding it to the popcorn. So I am going to switch to a larger rubber spatula. These guys are fantastic nonstick and can hold up to really, really high heat. I'm going to add a little bit of the caramel at a time because I don't want to kind of dredge it and drown it. So making sure everything is beautifully and evenly coated. Oh, yes. A little bit more. So I don't want this to be soaked. I definitely have a little bit more caramel than for popcorn that I popped, and that's totally fine. But essentially what I'm looking for is as I'm mixing this, I don't want to see a ton of leftover caramel at the bottom of the bowl, because if I were to put that onto the sheet tray and start drying it out, I'm just going to get kind of pulled out shards of dried sugar, which honestly is pretty dangerous when you're eating because that can get as sharp as glass. And, you know, take it from my experience, I've totally cut my hands and mouth on really sharp sugar. So you don't want excess sugar in there. I'd say I'm going to add just a smidge more. I'm not going to add all of it. I have like maybe 2 tablespoons left, and that's totally kosher. So I'm just going to mix this up, allow it to adhere to the popcorn, absorb into the popcorn. The popcorn is very porous right now, and that is ready to go. So I'm going to take this, my last folding of everything. Okay, very good. I'm going to take my sheet tray. And we're going to put a nice even layer. So I'm going to spread the popcorn out fully. What this is going to do, if you do make big batches of this, my biggest suggestion is do not crowd your pan. You know, I talked about this yesterday, and I am going to be a stickler with it. But when it comes to baking, patience and proper batching of things just makes all the difference. So if you're making a big batch of this, don't put everything on one sheet tray. Break it up into 2 sheet trays. Your product's going to cook faster. It's going to cook more evenly. It's just going to give you a better yield. If you were to kind of bunch this up, it's going to take a really long time to dry. It's going to clump together as it's drying, which is going to give you those sharp edges of sugar, which is really what you don't want. So anyway, that's my quick lesson in that. So this guy's ready to go. It smells fantastic. And as you can see now, it's, well, maybe you can, I don't really know what you guys can and cannot see, but it's got like a really, you can see that the sugar is still liquid on it. So what I'm going to do now, pop this in the oven. It's going to take about 30 minutes or so to dry out. I'm going to be checking in on it continuously. I will give it a stir every maybe 10 to 15 minutes. That's going to redistribute the heat. It's going to allow the popcorn to kind of flip over on itself. Anything that hasn't dried out underneath will start drying out. And as the sugar, if you make this at home, as you see, the sugar will kind of start melting off of the popcorn a little bit. Continuously mixing it just kind of continues to recoat the popcorn, and that's just what's going to give you that beautiful glisten on the outside and a really nice crunch to it. So that is the finale of snack number 1. Let me turn a timer on so I do not forget. I'm going to check on it in like 15 minutes. So snack number 2. These guys I have been making a shameful amount of. I'm going to open my window again because I am starting to. Sweet Cheeks is getting overheated. So I am going to make kind of an elevated, little bit bougier version of a cereal treat. Well, maybe I'll pause and answer a question. So someone just asked me what got me into baking. So it's a really cute story, actually. I love this is kind of like my lineage of baking, but my oldest brother, when I was like 5 or 6, he got me an Easy Bake Oven for Christmas. And I mean, I think any 90s kid was like really enthralled with the fact that you could bake with a freaking light bulb. But that was kind of my first intro into baking, as like minuscule as that is. But, you know, that kind of gave me the independence to start exploring a little bit and seeing products and projects go from start to end. And after that, and my parents kind of trusted me more in the kitchen, I just started experimenting a lot. You know, I grew up watching Food Network. I grew up watching like Emeril Lagasse with my dad in the morning, kind of doing these live cooking shows. And I just became really enthralled with it. It just looked super fun. And I also grew up in a, you know, cooking household. So baking was kind of my branch off into doing, you know, my own thing. It was very therapeutic for me. So as a child, you know, teenage angst got the best of me, and I would find a lot of solace in the kitchen, and would kind of just take my weekends, go into the kitchen and just find something that was definitely well beyond my skill set. And the amount of failures I had were comical, and my poor mother having to clean that stuff up behind me was ridiculous. But, you know, I would try making lollipops or, you know, enriched doughs at like, you know, 9 years old. And you find that, you know, you just experiment in the kitchen and it intrigues you. And that intrigue luckily brought me into the career that I am today. And I couldn't be more lucky. So I suggest anyone, you know, I know cooking and baking especially can be really daunting, but all you can do is try. Know that every professional has failed a million times over as well. So like, you know, there's no stress. All right, so I have my heat. I have all of my ingredients. Let me get my brain in order. Let me hydrate a little bit. Okay. So this next guy is really easy. You know, I literally just took the recipe off the box of like Rice Krispie treats and kind of just tweaked it a little bit to give it a little bit of twang. So I got my store-bought marshmallows. No shame in these guys. To be honest, I hate raw marshmallows, but toasted marshmallows are like, everything. So I'm going to kind of give like a little cheat sheet to making a really delicious, you know, Rice Krispie treat with the secret of toasting marshmallows. I got that guy. I got my butter here. So I'm going to be browning this butter to kind of, you know, elevate the flavor profile a little bit. So it's not just like a very flat, very sweet, you know, sugary treat. The brown butter will add like a very nice nutty and toasty note to it. The brown butter solids that caramelize in the bottom of my pan. Typically, well, I shouldn't say typically, but some people discard those caramelized milk solids. I'm going to keep them inside. I think it's going to add like a really delicious flavor to this really simple treat. And then I have my Rice Krispies. You can go ahead and, you know, put any cereal in. I would suggest if you're going to substitute Rice Krispies out to not, you know, substitute it with like Frosted Flakes, just because that's also coated in sugar. Maybe plain Cheerios, Chex Mix would be really good. Kix, you know, whatever you have in the pantry. Or if you're, you know, have a massive sweet tooth, by all means, put in, you know, Fruity Pebbles for all I care. No rules. So I'm going to pop this back down so you can see the heat. So I got my pan here. I'm going to pop the heat up to medium high. So on the recipe on the back of the box, it calls for, I have this recipe, but it typically calls for 3 tablespoons of butter, 40 marshmallows, or like 10 ounces, 1 package of marshmallows, and 6 cups of Rice Krispie treats. I have the recipe so that, I am not making a, a big batch of it, essentially. But with that being said, since I am browning the butter, I decided to up the amount of butter going into it. So although a halved recipe would call for 1.5 tablespoons, I decided to still use 3 tablespoons of butter with the brown butter mix. The reason I decided for that is because while I am browning butter, I am going to be losing volume because there is going to be, essentially the act of browning butter is having remnant water evaporate out and allow the milk solids to start caramelizing, which gives it that, beautiful brown color and that nutty flavor. But, if I were to put 3 tablespoons in here, my yield afterwards would not be 3 tablespoons. It might be like only 2 tablespoons because of that liquid that is evaporating out. So I decided to add a little bit more, well, not a little bit, I added double the amount of butter, but whatever. We could do whatever. So I have high heat. I'm gonna now pop it to about medium to medium low heat. I wanted to just get my pan nice and hot. I'm gonna add my butter to it. So this happens really quick. Browning butter can happen anywhere, depending on the amount that you have, anywhere from like 30 seconds to a minute. But I'm lifting my pan off the heat. Obviously my pan is still hot, but I just want all of my butter to melt down first before I actually allow it, reintroduce it to the heat. And this is just going to allow for more even cooking of my butter. Science and cooking just go so hand in hand. It's like insane. I have, I'll grab it in a second after this is kind of done, but I totally sold it for my friend too. So Jack, if you're watching, I'm very sorry, but it's like a food and science book behind pretty much every ingredient in the kitchen. And I have to say it's a kind of necessary tool for anyone that really enjoys cooking, because it gets you to understand, and it might seem boring, but like the molecular structures behind certain ingredients, and it gets you to understand the whys behind cooking, which make experimenting a lot easier when you understand, like, knowing that liquid evaporates out, later to add more volume of liquid, little things like that. All right, so all of my butter's melted down. I'm gonna reintroduce this back into the heat. Like I said, the browning of this is gonna happen super quick, and brown butter can totally burn. So definitely be diligent with washing it. One of those things, you're not stepping away. So I got this on the heat. I'm gonna continue to swirl it. Oh my God, the smell of butter is so good. And then the smell of browning butter is so good. Okay. Continue to swirl as this goes. A lot of the bubbles are going to start kind of reduce down. It's going to bubble up a lot, and the bubbles are kind of start ceasing out. Again, that's showing me that a lot of the liquid is evaporating from the pan. Oh, the sizzle. Food is so ASMR, like, ready. The sizzle of butter, or like the sizzle of oil on a pan, it's just very relaxing. Especially like caramel cooking. All right, I need to stop. Okay. So this is coming along nicely. Bringing it back up to like medium heat. Oh my God, between this, butter cooking, and then my caramel corn in the oven, I'm just like, it's a good situation going on in here. So I see that it's starting to froth up a little bit. Again, all telltale signs that my brown butter is browning appropriately. Not that interesting, but also very interesting. So again, I'm all about classic recipes. Obviously, Rice Krispie treats are just kind of a dime a dozen. The pancakes I made yesterday, super simple, but there's little things that you can tweak in a recipe to make it just that much more special, and kind of give it a little bit of an edge. It's like browning butter takes an extra couple minutes, but it just adds another layer of flavor. Toasting the marshmallows takes another couple minutes, adds another layer of flavor. So you're just taking really easy things and just transposing it to be a little bit more, a little bit more elevated. So my brown butter, just in that one sentence, is already done. happens so quick. So really hard to see, but it is, I see like the butter solids at the bottom have kind of separated out. They're starting to be a little toasted. I'm smelling it, which is a sign that it's done. It smells super toasty. The remnant heat is actually continuing to cook my butter. So I'm going to honestly, I'm going to pop it in front of my window for a second to kind of help cool it off so that it doesn't kind of cook any further. But it smells perfect. If I can show you, let's see, how can I show you guys? I don't know. I don't have a tool. I got a big spoon. Try that way. So, and you see that? Barely. It's kind of obviously hard to tilt a spoon without it falling, but it's got like that really beautiful, kind of deep, I don't really know, amberish color, but that's perfect. So I'm going to take that off the heat, and I'm going to move on to my next step here, which is toasting my marshmallows. So, I am just, like I said yesterday, if you guys were tuning in, I am all about MacGyvering in the kitchen. So with that being said, toasting my marshmallows is going to be done on I have some metal chopsticks in my apartment, thanks to my roommate. So, turn my heat on, there we go. So I'm gonna bring it up to a high flame. I was totally like a pyro, as I would say as a kid, but like it totally transposed this to me as an adult. But fire, so much fun. Who doesn't love it? As a kid, I was one of those that, like, when making marshmallow treats, like s'mores or whatever, I would just put my marshmallows right on, directly onto the flame and just kind of let the whole thing completely come into flames and just burn out. And that was my ideal marshmallow. There was no such thing as like even toasting or whatever. So I'm going to do the exact same thing here. I'm going to just pop them. I guess I should do that again. Yep. So I got my marshmallows. I'm literally just bringing them all up to like a massive torch, and allowing them to fully burn out. Yeah, baby. That's just like happiness right there. And then as I'm doing those, where are my tongs? As I'm finishing these guys, I'm putting them directly into the pan where the brown butter is, because after all of this is done, I'm going to reintroduce them to the heat together, and that is going to be melted down before adding my my Rice Krispies into it. So, adding another layer. Super toasty dolls. Definitely is. My childhood nickname is Toasty, so this is an incredibly appropriate treat. Toast for toast. My father started calling me Toast for a very silly reason that I won't go into. Got my other guy. So I've got 20 of these guys that I am melting down. Just a little bit better so you guys can see the full action. So just continuing onward. Prevailing onward, I should say. As I'm doing that, I'm going to check my guys in there, and they're looking tight. So another cool thing about these, treats that I'm making, obviously there's really no rules when it kind of comes to a treat like this. You can literally add it doesn't necessarily have to be cereal. It could be like any dry ingredient, essentially. You have only a couple cups worth of Rice Krispie treats. We have a lot of pretzels. Crush up the pretzels, put it in, put potato chips in. Who cares? It's like marshmallows as your glue. You can literally add anything that you want into this, and it will be fantastic. All right, so I'm nearly there. I got like 2 more rounds of marshmallows to go. So for anyone that maybe tuned in yesterday or is tuning in today, I would suggest obviously following Stimulus TV on IG. But if you want to also follow me, I am at Twister. I often post what I am cooking for the day. I'm sharing all of the recipes that I am making here on my feed, so you guys can follow along and kind of get the lowdown of what I'm making. And by all means, food education is like one of my absolute favorite things, and definitely one of my favorite parts of being a sous chef in a restaurant. It's, getting kind of those more green people in and showing them like the silly tips and tricks to make life easier and understanding ingredients easier. So, by all means, if you want to follow me on there, I will happily answer any questions that you might have in regards to recipe testing. If things are kind of going astray in your kitchen and you don't know why, I'm happy to help answer any and all questions. All right, so I got my last round of marshmallows going. I'm putting 5. I've been only putting 3, but I'm kind of overdoing these guys. So 5 away. Trying not to burn my hands, because heat is definitely conducted on these little metal chopsticks here. So then after this, you guys probably heard my timer beep. I'm going to pop into the oven. Oh, yes. That's just like what we want. That's just what we want. So I got all the marshmallows down. Yes. Boom. All right, so that's done. I'm gonna pop this back here. I'm gonna go into the oven really quick. Just pop this back up. Going into the oven, giving these guys a bit of a mix. Whoa, it's hot in here. So just gonna move these guys around. As you can see, the caramel is still, I don't know what you can see, but the caramel is still quite liquid at the bottom. So after mixing these guys up, I'm gonna pop them right back into the oven to continue to dry out. Put this timer on for turning the heat up. There we go. Gonna put it in for another 10 minutes while I'm kind of finishing up these Rice Krispie treats. So, okay, we got our pan of brown butter and toasted marshmallow treats. And I'm gonna pop that back up to a medium-low heat. So, medium-low. So there's like a couple, although again, rice, my hair up, it's very warm in my kitchen. Although Rice Krispie treats are an incredibly easy thing to make, there are little things that are done that people don't even realize that they're doing that kind of depreciates what you're looking for in a Rice Krispie treat, which is it to be super chewy and delicious. You want it to be gooey and pull apart and everything. So again, baking is patience. Don't blast things up to incredibly high heat and expect the same outcome if you were going to kind of take it a little bit more lower and slower. So, people often have, make Rice Krispie treats at home. They'll put their butter in the pot and they'll just throw their marshmallows in, pop it to incredibly high heat, and then for the marshmallows to melt down. What that is doing, it's, again, like letting, and it's funny because what I was doing with the popcorn is I wanted the remnant liquid and water to escape. But with this, on the contrary, because that extra moisture is what's going to make a very like chewy and delicious Rice Krispie treat, you don't want that excess moisture to kind of leave your pan. So low and slow is definitely the best bet. It's going to take a little bit of time, but what else do we have but time right now? So I'm actually going underneath. I got whatever this is called, the lid for my pan. I'm going to pop it on top, and I'm just going to kind of allow the steam inside that's going to be captured in my pan to help me melt down everything a lot more evenly. And this is definitely a cheat to kind of make it go a little bit faster. Higher heat's not going to make it go faster. Encapsulating the heat and whatever you're cooking is going to make it go faster. So like I said, I'm on medium heat right now. The one thing I don't want to happen is for my brown butter to continue to cook. So again, that medium-low heat is going to be my steady medium. I'm going to, I guess, come back up. We're going to chit-chat while this is happening. Stay hydrated again. Every time I drink, I'm going to tell you to hydrate with me. Oh, okay. Let's see. This is coming together. All right. I'm going to start moving this around a little bit gently. Like that again. So moving it around gently. Obviously, use whatever you have. I have, luckily, a little silicone whisk guy. I'm going to use this to kind of evade excess stick, if you will. So I'm just moving this around gently. I don't want to move it too fast, because if I move it too fast, the butter is going to start spewing out of the sides. But with that being said, and again, one of maybe my favorite things that like helps, I love toasted marshmallows. The look of it is just super happy. One of my favorite gelatos that I make at work as a treat for my coworkers during family meal is a toasted marshmallow gelato. Sometimes I make it malted to make a malted toasted marshmallow gelato. And it just I don't know, it's just like one of those flavors that is just so happy. It's like reminds you of your childhood. So how can you not be happy thinking of it? But what I do is I'll take like a giant pot. It's like yay big. That's a really good increment of measurement. Yay big. I'll load it with the marshmallows, and then with my blowtorch, I'll just kind of, again, torch it until everything's on fire, and let it burn out on its own. So I get that really nice, deep, toasty note. That, you know, and I love it too. It gives those little like black speckles throughout the gelato, which is the same thing you'll see here with making these Rice Krispie treats. And the smell is so intense that halfway down the kitchen, like I'll have my cooks running, be like, "Are you making the gelato again?" And like literally tears start coming out of their eyes, as dramatic as that sounds. But hey, I guess it's just, you know, that good. So this is melting down beautifully. You can see kind of, I don't know, just the melty goodness. And I wish you guys can smell this, because it's just like nutty smelling, toasty. It's just like all of my favorite things are happening in a pan. You know, if it wouldn't burn me, I would kind of just nestle inside of it. Anywho, so medium, it was on medium heat to melt it down. I am now completely on low heat. I do not want this to be cooking any further, but I kind of want to maintain the heat as I am adding my Rice Krispie treats to it, so that it is not setting too quickly. So I'm going to switch to, I use like 12 rubber spatulas during this demo. A lot of dishes later. What are we doing? Just cooking and dishes. So I have a new rubber spatula here that I'm going to spray with Pam spray. Obviously, Rice Krispie treats are very sticky because marshmallows, duh. Spray it over your sink. Don't spray it over the floor, because you will fall and slip, even with like non-slip shoes. It happens all the time in the kitchen because we're ding dongs. Don't do it. So I have my I have my cereal here. Again, use any cereal that you want. I have my Pam sprayed spatula, and then lastly, I pre-set up, but I have you can put it in anything that you have, Corningware, yada yada. I have a little quarter sheet tray. This is smaller than half the size of like a standard sheet tray that you have at home. But again, I did a half batch size, but I Pam sprayed it so it doesn't stick, obviously. And then the other little tip trick that I have for an incredibly easy recipe here is after you're mixing it and you are putting it into your pan, for the love of God, do not like smash it in to try and get it like, although I have a little square pan here, I am not going to be diligent to try and get it to like all corners of my pan. That compacting it down like that is just, you know, squishing out all of the air, essentially the air pockets that are in between all of the little pieces of cereal. And that's just going to dry out your product a lot faster. That's going to make it super dense, and you're not going to have like that chewy Rice Krispie treat that you are looking for. So don't do that. Anywho, I'm going to start adding this. I'm going to add it a little bit at a time, and I'm going to be folding it in. And if I make a mess, you know, just realize that I'm human and I also make a mess. So I'm going to start just gently folding it in, moving it around. Oh my God. I've made like so many batches of this recently, and it's freaking disgusting how many Rice Krispie treats I've eaten in the last, well, this whole quarantine. So I'm just, it never gets old. So again, adding a little bit at a time. this is just to prevent me from spilling, you know, Rice Krispie treats literally all over my stovetop. The first time I made this, it's definitely not typical to make it in a pan, but since I browned the butter and I don't want to wash something else, I'm gonna, you know, just use the thing that I've already dirtied. But, you know, there's not a lot of space, so working slowly, working diligently makes for a cleaner kitchen, makes for less to clean up later, and yeah, that's what we're looking for. Because, I don't know, last bit going in, there's a lot. Folding it gently is how you do it. Wow, it is pouring out right now, and I kind of love it. It's very like, I don't know, I'm feeling very soothed right now. I said like in the kitchen is kind of my like safe space. I'm mixing Rice Krispie treats with a Snap Crackle Pop. It smells good. I'm hearing the rain. There's freaking birds chirping outside because they're happy. It's like, you know, everything's okay in the world. Okay, last bit of folding. I can tell there's a lot of marshmallow treat underneath, but I gotta kind of final folds. Oh yeah. All right, turning my heat off because this is pretty much donezo. Okay, so I got my sheet tray. I got my mallow mounds. And this is just all the things that I want. So like I said, I'm not gonna be crazy. I'm just gonna spread this out a little bit, but I'm not gonna be diligent with like really packing it down. Oh my God, it's like really raining outside. I love it. So I don't know if you can like see the details in this, but like, my God, if you're going to make a Rice Krispie treat during this quarantine, please do me a favor, like singe your marshmallows because it's just going to make that much better of a product. It's like the smallest, dumbest trick, but it's fantastic. And then, you know, obviously you got like the crazy like pull of marshmallow going on. It's just like a beautiful color. And I'm gonna go ahead and like test it because quality control, you know. But like I said, these treats, it's like marshmallow is your glue. You can put anything you want in this. Pretzels, potato chips, freaking Oreos pieces. Who cares? I just put a little bit. That was a little disgusting. It's okay. So these are mine. But these guys are good to go. And I'm probably gonna, me and my roommates will crush these guys. How can you toast them if you have an electric stove? That's a good question. I mean, the only thing I could really think of is if you have like a blowtorch, if you really want to be diligent and like use a butane lighter, like for marshmallow, but that might make it taste a little funky. I would say maybe try the broiler. I know that, yeah, like if you have a grill, definitely, like a charcoal grill. If you got a charcoal grill, you're good to go on that, obviously, because you have fire pretty easily. But I would say if you can, I'm honestly like I never grew up with a household that has an electric stove, so I don't really know how those elements work. Oh my God, it's raining so hard that the rain's literally like coming into my window. I would say if you have a broiler attachment, that would be kind of the best bet inside of your oven. It would probably get hot enough that it might start scorching the top. That gives it that like nice toasty flavor. And let me know how that is because, you know, more knowledge, the better. All right, so that's the last of that treat. Let's check on my caramel corn. Yeah, to be honest, like I'm very thankful I did not grow up in a household with an electric situation. I would lose my mind. I've definitely been in like Airbnbs before that have electric stoves, and they're very daunting trying to adjust to them. So my caramel corn is looking good. I'm going to give it another mix. So these guys definitely vary. I mean, it's one of those things that you can't rush. I can tell that I definitely have at least another like 20 minutes or so of drying that these need, which obviously I'm not going to like, kind of sit here and wait for them to dry during this segment because we're kind of at a wrap. But with that being said, it's, again, about a little bit of patience, taking the time to stir them evenly and making sure that the product is good as you're drying them out. And I'll kind of leave these last words that if you make these at home, you can kind of remember this in the back of your mind, but continuously move them around, test and taste your product, take a kernel out, let it cool fully to be, the temperature of your room, and then see the crisp that you have on the outside of the popcorn kernel. If it's nice and crunchy, you're good to go. If it's a little sticky, if it's wet, you definitely have a long time to go. If it's a little sticky, you probably have another 10 minutes. But if it's nice and crunchy, you're good to go. And the last thing I'll say with these guys, well, let me show you what kind of at. So these guys are, God, I have no idea how to like showcase this stuff. So these guys are definitely have like a little bit of sheen to them, and there's like a little bit of remnant caramel kind of at the bottom of my silk pad here. So I'm gonna let these guys dry out for probably another 10 to 15 minutes. But they are going to be fantastic. My God, I love Amaro. Like, if anyone from like Averna Amaro, like any reps are watching, like, come on, I'll be your plug. I'll just showcase you guys on every recipe that I do. Sponsor me, or Meld and Salt. I love both of you. So my last little tidbit of information for these guys is as they are coming out and as they are cooling off, once they are fully done, my best bet is once they're kind of like warm enough that you can touch them, break them up fully, because as they're drying out, if they fully cool, clump together, like the product will be fine. Again, this is maybe just being a perfectionist, but I want like every individual kernel to be beautifully encrusted with this caramel. If you let it clump up and you're like ripping it apart later, you're going to have these like gaping spots where like the popcorn ripped off from one another. That's not going to be coated. It's not going to be happy. It'll be kind of happy, but like you can make it better. And again, what do you have but time to like perfect all these little things? Anyway, so we're pretty much a wrap at this point with all of our guys. So, like I said, follow Stimulus TV on Instagram. Follow me on Instagram at Torkster. I am always happy to answer any food questions that you may have. It's, again, education is one of my favorite things to do. So reach out if you have any questions. If you need recipes, I have, 19 notebooks worth of recipes that I'm always happy to share because, food is just a communal loving thing, and everyone finds a little bit of comfort when it comes to food. And I hope that you guys are also taking the time to be in the kitchen and find that same therapy that I had as a kid. And, even with pastry being my profession and me doing that, 40 to 60 hours a week, this little bit of time that I have to kind of re-fall in love with why I loved cooking, with why I first decided to be in a kitchen and why I decided to do pastry, was for that therapeutic comfort and, mess up, have fun with it, and give everything a shot. Follow me. I'll post the recipes a little bit later. And yeah, until next time. So I hope that there are no further questions in regards to these snacks, but I have plenty of other snacks lined up that I'm going to be making within the next coming days. And yeah, I'm signing off. It's been a pleasure. I'll talk to you guys later.